My dad banned me from my own daughter's birthday because my wife was bringing her successful boyfriend. They all looked down on me until he spotted me on a video call and said, "Hello, boss." That's when the apology started, but it was already too late. They thought I was just a struggling businessman, a washed-up ex-husband they could easily dismiss from my own daughter's life. But what they didn't know was the quiet, calculating storm they were about to unleash. Chapter 1. Uninvited. I stared at my phone, the text from my ex-wife, Natalie, burning into my retinas like a brand. "Barrett, this isn't personal, but Max doesn't feel comfortable with you attending Zoe's birthday. It would be better if you skip this one. I'll send pictures." My jaw clenched so tight I thought it would crack. My daughter. My Zoe. Her 16th birthday party, and I was being told to stay away because Natalie's new boyfriend, a man I'd never even met, felt uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? I was uncomfortable. I was furious. I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly with a mix of anger and disbelief. "She's my daughter. I'm coming." The reply was instantaneous, almost robotic. "Max is paying for everything at the Four Seasons. He says it's his event, his guest list. Please don't make this difficult." Suddenly, my spacious home office, usually a sanctuary of calm, felt like a cage. The sleek, minimalist furniture that usually brought me peace now seemed to mock my powerlessness. Outside my floor-to-ceiling windows, the Seattle skyline glittered, completely oblivious to the silent rage churning inside me. Then my phone rang. Zoe's name flashed across the screen. My heart ached even before I answered. "Dad?" Her voice was small, uncertain, a little wobbly. "Hey, sweetheart," I tried to keep my voice level, not wanting to put her in the middle of this mess. "I was just talking to your mom about your party." A beat of silence. "She told you already, didn't she? That I'm not invited?" "Yeah." My voice was quiet, carefully neutral. "It's not me, Dad." The words tumbled out of her, rushed and desperate. "Max says you'd make everyone uncomfortable. He says you'll embarrass me because..." She trailed off, her voice cracking. "Because what, Zoe?" I pushed, my throat tightening. "Because you're not successful like him. He says it would be awkward having someone like you at the Four Seasons." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were true, but because my daughter believed them. For 3 years since the divorce, I had meticulously maintained the appearance of a struggling small business owner. It had been a deliberate choice, a carefully constructed facade, and it had apparently cost me my daughter's respect. The pain lanced through my chest. "I see," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "And what do you think?" Another pause, heavy and long. "Mom says you never amounted to anything, that you wasted your potential." I closed my eyes. Natalie. She knew nothing of my actual life, not truly. No one did, except my inner circle, the very few I trusted. "I'm sorry, Dad," Zoe continued, her voice raw. "Max bought me a car for my birthday. He says I shouldn't waste time with losers." "And you believe that, Zoe?" I asked, my voice betraying none of the turmoil inside. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her voice cracked again. "I got to go. Mom's calling me." The line went dead. I slowly lowered my phone and gazed at my reflection in the dark computer screen. At 42, I still cut an imposing figure, 6'2", broad shoulders, the physique of someone who never missed a morning workout. My dark hair was just beginning to gray at the temples, giving me what my business associates called a distinguished look. But right now, all I saw was the pain in my own eyes. 3 years ago, when Natalie left me, taking 13-year-old Zoe with her, she genuinely believed she was leaving a failing businessman. She had absolutely no idea that my apparent struggles were a calculated move, a protective shield, as I secretly built Thorne Innovations into a tech empire valued at over $2 billion. Only a select few knew that the modest Barrett Thorne Consulting was merely a front for my vast holdings. My real wealth and power remained hidden behind shell companies and discreet investments. It was a protective measure that had begun during our marriage when I recognized Natalie's growing materialism. My intercom buzzed, pulling me back to the present. "Mr. Thorne, Lyle is here," announced my assistant, Ava. I straightened my tie, pushing the fresh hurt down deep, where I kept all my old wounds. Send him in, Ava. A tall man with weather-beaten features entered. Lyle Garrison, my head of security and a former Army Ranger, had been with me since the very beginning. He was the kind of man who saw through facades. You look like hell, Lyle observed, his gaze sharp. Natalie's banned me from Zoe's birthday party, I told him, a bitter laugh escaping me. Her new boyfriend doesn't want failures like me, embarrassing them at the Four Seasons. Lyle's expression darkened, a quiet intensity in his eyes. That's cold. What are you going to do about it? I stood and walked to the window. The Seattle skyline, where I owned 3 of the buildings visible from my office, sprawled before me. Nothing yet. I turned back to Lyle, a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes playing on my lips. But I think it's time I finally met this Max person. #### Chapter 2. Paper masks. You know, Natalie Kingston and I, we met during our junior year at Washington State University. I was studying business, full of big dreams. She was in communications, with even bigger ones. Our connection felt instant, electric. The ambitious business major and the vivacious future PR executive, it seemed like a perfect match. You're different, she told me on our 3rd date as we shared cheap wine in my cramped apartment. Most guys talk about what they'll do someday. You talk like you're already doing it. That confidence, my intensity, my work ethic, and the spark in my eyes when I discussed my ideas, she was captivated. What I didn't know then, what I only understood much, much later, was that Natalie was primarily attracted to potential. Specifically, the potential for immense wealth. We married 2 years after graduation. I launched my first tech startup with my roommate, Flynn Rivera, while Natalie landed a job at a prestigious PR firm. The early years were truly happy. 2 young professionals climbing our respective ladders, building a modest home in a Seattle suburb. Then came the dot-com crash. My first company folded, taking our modest savings with it. Natalie stood by me, outwardly, but something shifted in her eyes. The admiration dimmed, replaced by a constant, almost clinical evaluation. Zoe's birth temporarily unified us. I took odd consulting jobs while secretly rebuilding, creating the foundation of what would eventually become Thorn Innovations. I worked brutal hours, often sleeping at a small office downtown rather than making the commute home. You're never here, Natalie would accuse, her voice laced with growing resentment. What kind of father are you becoming? I'm building something for us, I'd reply, holding back the full truth. For Zoe's future. What I didn't tell her was that my new business model wasn't just working, it was exploding. By the time Zoe was 5, I had silent ownership in 3 successful tech companies. By the time she was 10, that number had grown to 12, with a net worth approaching 9 figures. But I kept it hidden. Deliberately. I was disturbed by the changes I observed in Natalie. Her sudden, intense fascination with luxury brands, her new circle of friends, all wealthy wives with even wealthier husbands, her increasing dissatisfaction with our modest lifestyle. The Mendozas just bought a summer home in the Hamptons, she'd sigh over dinner, or Carol's husband took her to Paris for their anniversary. It wasn't just reporting news, it was a constant tally, a measurement. So, I created a paper mask. I became the struggling consultant, still trying to find his footing. I drove a 3-year-old Audi instead of the Bentley I could easily afford. Our house was comfortable, yes, but not extravagant. I claimed business failures when, in reality, I was orchestrating massive deals through proxies and shell companies, building my phantom empire in the shadows. Then came the final straw. When Zoe was 13, Natalie came home from a charity gala she'd attended alone. I met someone tonight, she announced, standing in our bedroom doorway while I reviewed contracts. His name is Maxwell Holloway. He owns Holloway Development Group. I looked up, recognizing the name of a mid-sized property development company that specialized in high-end commercial real estate. That's nice, I said, my voice flat, returning to my paperwork. He asked me to dinner. I said yes. I slowly set down my pen. You're married, Natalie. Am I? She laughed bitterly, a sharp, cruel sound. To what? A man who's never here? Who can't give his family the life they deserve? Who's going nowhere while all our friends succeed? I provide for us, I said quietly, the old wound aching. You provide mediocrity, she snapped, her voice rising. I'm tired of making excuses for you at parties. Tired of watching other women get the life I deserved. A month later, she moved out, taking Zoe. The divorce was brutal, but quick. I let her believe what she wanted about my finances, paying a reasonable, but certainly not extravagant, settlement. Natalie walked away, convinced she'd escaped a failed husband, never realizing the staggering fortune she'd left behind. Within 6 months, she was publicly dating Max Holloway. And within a year, I had quietly acquired controlling interest in 3 companies that did essential business with Holloway Development Group. I never used this leverage. I simply held it, waiting, patient, calculating. Until now. Chapter 3. The Phantom Empire. She actually called you a loser to your face? Flynn Rivera's normally cheerful expression darkened as he paced my private office at Thorn Tower, the secret headquarters I'd built in downtown Seattle, concealed behind the modest facade of a shared workspace company I owned. Not directly, I replied, swirling the scotch in my glass. But she's been filling Zoe's head with it for years. Max just put words to it. Flynn stopped pacing. At 41, he looked younger than me, with his energetic movements and casual attire, a testament to his role as the public face of our technology ventures while I operated from the shadows. It's been 3 years, man. Maybe it's time to drop the disguise. At least with Zoe. I stared out at the view from the 47th floor. My tower. My city. I wanted to see who would stand by me when they thought I had nothing. And now you know, Flynn said softly, a hint of sadness in his voice. I nodded, a flash of pain crossing my features before the mask of control returned. Now I know. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava, my executive assistant. Research on Maxwell Holloway complete. Files uploaded to your secure server. Let's see what we're dealing with, I murmured, opening my laptop. The file was comprehensive. Maxwell Holloway, 45, CEO of Holloway Development Group, divorced twice before meeting Natalie. No children. Company valued at approximately $75 million. Substantial, yes, but a mere fraction of Thorn Innovation's worth. Known for flashy developments, celebrity connections, and aggressive business tactics. Most importantly, Holloway Development Group was currently seeking financing for a major Seattle waterfront project, their biggest ever. And, unknown to Holloway, the lending consortium they were negotiating with was controlled by one of my shell companies. He's leveraged his eyeballs, Flynn observed, reading over my shoulder. One failed project away from trouble. I stared at a photo of Max, tall, tanned, with 2 perfect veneered teeth and the smug expression of a man who'd never faced real consequences. And there's more, Flynn continued. Holloway Development just put in a bid to acquire the Westlake Center property. Guess who owns the holding company that controls it? I smiled thinly. That would be me. This guy has no idea he's been swimming in your pond. No, I said quietly, a dangerous glint in my eyes. He doesn't. My phone rang. Zoe again. I put it on speaker. Dad. Her voice was hushed, as if she was hiding somewhere. I'm sorry about earlier. Max and Mom were right there. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, softening my tone. What's going on? Mom said I can at least video call you during the party on Saturday. She paused, then I want you there, Dad. I don't care what Max says. I exchanged a glance with Flynn. I want to be there, too, Zoe. We'll figure something out. After we hung up, Flynn raised an eyebrow. Video call. That could be interesting. Very interesting, I agreed, my mind already racing, especially if Max happens to be in frame when I answer. Later that evening, I sat in my home study reviewing the latest acquisition proposals when my secure line rang. It was Lyle. Got something you should know, the security chief said without preamble. Holloway's been asking questions about you around town. I set down my pen. What kind of questions? Basic background checks. Seems like he's trying to verify your loser status before the big party. Making sure you're as insignificant as Natalie claims. Interesting timing, I mused. He's been dating my ex-wife for years, but only now decides to check me out. There's more, Lyle continued. The reason is the Westlake deal. Your name came up peripherally in some paperwork, and he's suddenly paranoid about connections he can't explain. A slow smile spread across my face. So Max doesn't want me at the party because he thinks I'm a nobody, but he's also worried I might be somebody. Pretty much. What's your play here, boss? I leaned back in my chair, the plans crystallizing in my mind. For 3 years, I've been invisible, Lyle. I think it's time to step into the light. Selectively. The video call, Lyle said, understanding dawning. The perfect opportunity. Precisely, I agreed. Give me everything on Holloway's current projects, especially the waterfront development. I want to know every investor, every contractor, every permit application. After hanging up, I opened my safe and removed a file labeled contingency. Inside was a detailed strategy I'd created years ago, but never implemented, a systematic approach to revealing my true identity and status in ways that would maximize impact on specific targets. I developed it initially as a business tactic. Now, it would serve a much more personal purpose. I updated the file with notes about the upcoming birthday party and video call. Then, I opened my laptop and typed an email to my attorneys, instructing them to prepare for significant business moves in the coming weeks. As I worked late into the night, a text from Natalie arrived. Please don't make a scene about the party. Max is very particular about his social circle. It would be embarrassing for everyone if you try to come. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up the real estate record for Natalie and Max's current residence, a $3.2 million waterfront home on Mercer Island. Property taxes were coming due next month, I noted. And the mortgage holder was a bank that my investment group had recently acquired. Small details. Useful details. The pieces were falling into place. #### Chapter 4. Hello, boss. Saturday arrived with Seattle's typical autumn drizzle. I spent the morning in my home gym, working off the tension that had built over the past week. By noon, I was showered and dressed in a custom charcoal suit, a stark contrast to the casual attire I typically wore when meeting with Natalie or Zoe. This wasn't about blending in anymore. My phone chimed with a text from Zoe. Party starting. We'll call it 3. Miss you, Dad. I smiled at the small victory. Despite everything, my bond with Zoe remained, albeit strained by Natalie's influence and my necessary deceptions. At 2:45, I settled into my home office. I had arranged the background carefully, subtle but unmistakable signs of wealth and power. A rare painting partially visible. Built-in bookshelves with leather-bound first editions. A window view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. My laptop chimed at precisely 3. I took a deep breath and accepted the video call. Zoe's face filled the screen. She was in the venue's restroom, her carefully styled hair and makeup indicating Natalie's influence. Dad, happy not being at my birthday, she attempted to joke, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Happy birthday, sweetheart, I replied warmly. You look beautiful. Thanks, she said, her smile faltering. I wish you were here. Me too. How's the party? Boring. Mom invited all these people I barely know. Max's business associates and their kids. They're all out there networking while pretending to celebrate me turning 16. I nodded sympathetically. I'm sorry, Zoe. That's not right. She shrugged. Whatever. Look, I got you on my new phone, Max's gift. It's the latest model. She flipped the camera to show the sleek device. Very nice, I said, noting the $1,200 phone was exactly the kind of flashy gift Max would choose. Expensive enough to impress, but requiring no actual thought. Zoe, there you are. Natalie's voice came from off-screen, sharp with irritation. Everyone's waiting for the cake. She stopped abruptly as she entered the frame and saw me. Oh, you're on with your father. 3 years had changed Natalie little, still beautiful at 40, with her highlighted blonde hair and careful makeup. She wore a designer dress I recognized from a recent fashion magazine, likely $5,000 minimum. Hello, Natalie, I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed at my unexpected appearance and surroundings. You dressed up to take a call from your daughter's bathroom, she sneered. I had business today, I replied simply. Natalie's mouth tightened. Well, we need to get back to the party. Max has arranged a special presentation. Mom, I just started talking to Dad. Zoe protested. 5 minutes, Natalie said firmly. Then cake. She disappeared from view. Zoe rolled her eyes. See what I mean? It's her party, not mine. It'll be over soon. I consoled her. Maybe next weekend we can. The bathroom door opened again. Zoe, seriously, what's taking so? A man's voice cut off as he entered the frame. Tall, fake-tanned, with that too wide, veneered smile I'd seen in photos. Maxwell Holloway. Max stared at the screen, recognition slowly dawning on his face as he took in my appearance and surroundings. Who's this? Max asked, his tone condescending, dismissive. My dad, Zoe said tersely. Dad, this is Max. Max's smile was patronizing, arrogant. The ex-Natalie's told me all about you. Still doing that little consulting thing. My smile was shark-like, chilling. Among other things. Well, sorry you couldn't make it today. Very exclusive venue, you understand? Need to maintain certain standards. Max placed a proprietary hand on Zoe's shoulder, a gesture of ownership. I leaned forward slightly. Understand completely, Maxwell. Standards are important in all aspects of life. Business included. Something in my tone made Max pause. He studied me more carefully, taking in the expensive suit, the sophisticated office background, the confident demeanor that absolutely did not match Natalie's descriptions. Have we met before? Max asked, his smugness faltering slightly. Not formally, I replied. Though you've been in several meetings with my representatives. Max frowned. What company did you say you were with? I didn't, I said, my voice low and controlled. But you've been negotiating with my lending consortium for the Waterfront Place project, and my real estate division is reviewing your bid for the Westlake Center acquisition. The color drained from Max's face. His eyes widened, comprehension slowly dawning, then slamming into him. You can't be Barrett Thorne. I confirmed it, my voice like ice. CEO of Thorne Innovations Group. Owner of Cascade Investment Partners. A majority stakeholder in Pacific Northwest Holdings. Max's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. But that's impossible. Thorne Innovations is worth billions. He turned to Zoe, his face contorted in disbelief. Your mother said he was a failed businessman. Zoe looked between Max and the screen, confusion evident, her eyes wide. Dad, what's going on? Before I could respond, Max blurted out, a desperate, fawning tone in his voice. Hello, boss. I had no idea. There must be some misunderstanding. Natalie appeared behind them, irritation on her face. What's taking so long? The guests are. She stopped dead when she saw Max's expression, then looked at the screen. What's wrong? Max grabbed the phone, angling it so Natalie could see me clearly. Did you know who your ex-husband actually is? He hissed, pure terror in his voice. Natalie stared at the screen, bewildered. What are you talking about? That's just Barrett. Just Barrett? Max laughed, a high, nervous, almost hysterical sound. Natalie, your ex-husband is Barrett Thorne. The Barrett Thorne. My company has been courting his investment group for months. He controls half the commercial real estate in Seattle. Natalie's face went blank with shock. That's not possible. Barrett was struggling when we divorced. His business was barely staying afloat. That's what you wanted to believe, Natalie, I said quietly, letting the words hang in the air. I never corrected you. The silence that followed was deafening. Zoe looked shell-shocked. Max appeared absolutely terrified. And Natalie? Natalie's expression shifted rapidly, a chilling transition from disbelief to dawning realization, then to cold, calculating composure. Her PR training kicked in. Barrett, she finally said, forcing a warm, utterly fake smile. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Of course, you're welcome at Zoe's party. In fact, why don't you come right now? We'd all love to see you. I checked my watch, a deliberate, slow movement. I'm afraid I have a board meeting in 30 minutes. Perhaps another time. But surely you could, Max began, desperation in his voice. Goodbye, Zoe. Happy birthday, I interrupted, cutting him off. We'll talk soon. I ended the call before they could respond. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding despite my outward calm. The moment of revelation had arrived sooner than I'd planned, but the shocked, crumbling expressions on their faces had been worth the wait. My phone immediately lit up with texts. From Natalie, "We need to talk. Call me ASAP." From Max, "Mr. Thorne, sincere apologies for the misunderstanding. Would very much like to discuss privately. Can meet at your convenience." And finally, from Zoe, "Dad, what just happened? Why didn't you ever tell me?" I ignored them all and called Flynn instead. "How did it go?" my friend asked, his voice eager. "Better than expected," I replied, a chilling satisfaction in my tone. "The grenade has been thrown. Now we watch the explosion." Chapter 5. Damage Control. The Four Seasons ballroom descended into chaos after that video call ended. My 16-year-old daughter, Zoe, sat stunned on a bathroom couch while Natalie paced frantically before her. "This is insane," Natalie muttered, running her hands through her perfect blonde hair. "It can't be true. He was struggling when we split. The settlement was modest. He drove a sensible car. We lived in a normal house." "Well, he's not struggling now," Max snapped, his normally impeccable hair disheveled from repeatedly raking his hands through it. "Do you have any idea what this means? My entire waterfront development hinges on financing from his company." Natalie rounded on him, her voice rising in accusation. "This is your fault. You're the one who insisted he couldn't come because you told me he was a nobody." Max shouted back, his face red with fury. "A small-time consultant who couldn't hack it in the real business world. Those were your exact words." Zoe, her birthday celebration completely forgotten, looked between them, her eyes wide with hurt and betrayal. "Stop it, both of you." She stood, her designer dress swishing angrily. "All this time you've been telling me Dad was a failure, making me feel sorry for him. And now I find out he's some billionaire." "We don't know that he's a billionaire," Natalie said weakly, trying to regain control. "Thorne Innovations is valued at over $2 billion. Max countered, checking his phone frantically. "I just looked it up. How did I not connect the names before? Barrett Thorne Consulting. Thorne Innovations. God, I'm an idiot." Outside the bathroom, the party guests murmured in confusion. The birthday girl had disappeared, the cake sat uncut, and the hosts were nowhere to be seen. "We need to fix this," Natalie decided, switching instantly to crisis management mode. "Max, go out there and tell everyone we're having a small family moment. Zoe will be out soon for cake. I need to call Barrett." "Good luck with that," Max muttered, straightening his tie before heading out into the awkward silence of the ballroom. Natalie pulled out her phone and dialed my number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again with the same result, then sent another text. "Barrett, please call me. We need to talk about Zoe." Zoe watched her mother with new, cold eyes. "You left him because you thought he wasn't successful enough." "It wasn't a question." Natalie's perfectly manicured hand trembled slightly. "It was more complicated than that, honey." "Was it?" Zoe's voice was hollow, devoid of its usual youthful vibrancy. "Because I remember when you started seeing Max, you kept talking about his house, his cars, his connections. You never talked like that about Dad. Your father and I had issues long before." Natalie tried to explain, to spin the narrative. "Save it." Zoe interrupted, standing up. "I'm going home." "Home? Zoe, this is your birthday party. There are 50 people out there. Your friends?" "Max's business contacts, not mine." Zoe grabbed her purse. "I'm calling an Uber." "Don't be ridiculous. We'll talk about this later." Natalie grabbed her daughter's arm. Zoe pulled away sharply. "Like we talked about banning Dad from my party? Or how about all those times you told me not to expect much from him for birthdays and Christmas, because he simply couldn't afford it?" Natalie flinched. "I was trying to manage your expectations." "Well, consider my expectations completely unmanaged." Zoe stalked out of the bathroom, leaving her mother staring after her, the picture of a woman whose carefully constructed world was crumbling. Meanwhile, across town, I sat in my office with Flynn and Lyle, watching the fallout on multiple screens. One showed my phone with incoming messages. Another displayed the security feed from the Four Seasons lobby, courtesy of the hotel's head of security, a former client who owed me a favor. Look at this, Flynn said, pointing to a financial alert. Holloway Development Group stock just dropped 3% in the last hour. Word must be getting out about the connection. I nodded. Investors are nervous. They're wondering what it means that Holloway has been courting me for financing while simultaneously banning me from a family event. Not a good look, Lyle agreed. The corporate world runs on relationships. Holloway just publicly insulted one of the most powerful men in Seattle. My private line rang, a number few people possessed. I checked the ID. Olivia West, my former sister-in-law, Natalie's younger sister. Olivia, I answered. This is unexpected. Barrett. Her voice was guarded, but not hostile. I just left Zoe's party. It's a mess over there. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? She asked skeptically. Because from where I'm standing, you just dropped a nuclear bomb on my sister's life. I leaned back in my chair. I simply answered a video call for my daughter on her birthday, a birthday party I was expressly forbidden from attending. Olivia was silent for a moment. Then why didn't you ever tell me? We've had coffee every month since the divorce. You let me believe you were struggling. I let everyone believe what they wanted to believe, I replied. You were one of the few who treated me the same regardless. Another pause. Zoe left the party in tears. She's pretty upset about being lied to by both her parents. I closed my eyes briefly, the first crack in my composure. Where is she now? Heading to my place. She doesn't want to see Natalie or Max. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Olivia replied. I'm still processing the fact that my brother-in-law is apparently a secret billionaire. Also, Natalie is on the warpath. She's convinced you hid assets during the divorce. Everything was disclosed according to legal requirements, I said calmly. The value of my holdings at that time was accurately reported. What happened after we separated is another matter. God, you always were 10 steps ahead, Olivia said, a reluctant admiration in her voice. I have to go. Zoe's arriving. Just be careful, Barrett. This isn't just about Natalie and that jackass she's dating. Zoe's caught in the middle. After hanging up, I turned to Flynn and Lyle. Zoe's staying with Olivia tonight? Flynn nodded. Good. Gives everyone time to cool off. He hesitated. What exactly is your endgame here, Barrett? Humiliating Max and Natalie, or something more? My expression hardened. They need to understand the consequences of their actions. All of them. Even Zoe? Flynn asked quietly. Zoe will learn a valuable lesson about judgment and loyalty, I replied. Sometimes the truth hurts before it heals. My phone buzzed with another text from Max. Mr. Thorne, I've been trying to reach you. The Waterfront Place presentation is Monday. Please don't let personal matters affect our professional relationship. I had no idea of your connection to Natalie when we began discussions. I showed the message to Flynn, who laughed. That's a lie. He's been with Natalie for years. Of course, it's a lie, I agreed. And Monday's presentation is about to become very interesting. I picked up my phone and called my executive assistant. Ava, contact the board. I'll be personally attending the Holloway Development presentation on Monday. An hour later, my security team reported that Natalie had arrived at my building demanding to see me. I instructed lobby security to send her up. No point delaying the inevitable confrontation. When Natalie stormed into my office, she stopped short at the sight of the expansive space with its panoramic views and expensive furnishings. Her eyes, wide with shock, scanned the room. How long, she demanded, without preamble. How long have you been living like this while I thought you were barely getting by? I dismissed Flynn and Lyle with a nod before turning to my ex-wife. Would you like a drink? You seem upset. Upset? You've been lying to me, to our daughter, for years. I never lied, I corrected her, my voice calm, controlled. I simply allowed you to believe what you wanted to believe. You decided I was a failure and left. I didn't correct your assumption. Natalie paced the office, taking in the undeniable evidence of my success. This is crazy. You were struggling when we were together. Your business was barely breaking even. The business you saw was barely breaking even, I agreed. The others were quite profitable. Others? Natalie stopped pacing, her head snapping towards me. What others? I gestured to a wall displaying dozens of framed corporate logos. all subsidiaries of Thorn Innovations. I kept my real work compartmentalized. Only a few trusted people knew the full extent of my operations. Why? Natalie's voice cracked. Why would you hide this from me? I was your wife. You were, I acknowledged, my tone cooling, hardening. A wife who measured her husband's worth by his bank account rather than his character. A wife who left when she thought she'd found someone more successful. Natalie flinched. That's not fair. Our marriage had problems. Yes, it did, I interrupted, cutting her off. And instead of working through them, you jumped ship to the first flashy alternative that came along. How's that working out for you now, Natalie? Now that you know Max isn't the biggest fish in the pond after all. Natalie's expression shifted, anger giving way to a chilling calculation. She moved closer, her voice softening, attempting a practiced charm. Barrett, we should talk about this rationally. For Zoe's sake. She's confused and hurt. As she should be, I agreed, my gaze unwavering. She's been taught to disrespect her father based on lies. Not lies. Natalie protested. Misunderstandings. We can fix this. Maybe we all need a fresh start. I laughed, the sound devoid of humor. A fresh start? Is that what this is about? Now that you know what I'm really worth, you're reconsidering your options. Natalie's face flushed. That's cruel. I'm thinking about our daughter. No, you're thinking about yourself. You always have. I stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Go back to Max, Natalie. Explain to him how you've sabotaged his business by turning his potential biggest investor against him. I'm sure he'll be very understanding. Barrett, please. We're done here, I said, pressing the intercom. Ava, please show Miss Kingston out. As Natalie left, fury and fear warring in her expression, I returned to the window, gazing out at my city. Phase 1 was complete. The revelation had landed with maximum impact. Now it was time for Phase 2. Chapter 6. The Iron Fist. Monday morning arrived with dark clouds and a palpable sense of impending doom at Holloway Development Group headquarters. Max Holloway had barely slept all weekend, alternating between desperate attempts to reach me and frantic meetings with his executive team. The Waterfront Place project was Holloway's most ambitious development to date, a $120 million mixed-use complex that would either cement his legacy or utterly destroy his company. And the primary financing, a $75 million package he'd spent months negotiating, was through Cascade Investment Partners, my company. He's going to pull the funding, Max muttered, pacing his office while his CFO, Dennis Palmer, watched with increasing concern. We don't know that, Dennis countered, though his tone lacked conviction. The deal makes financial sense, regardless of personal issues. Max rounded on him, eyes wide with panic. I banned a man from his daughter's birthday party. Called him a loser to his face. Technically, you didn't know it was him, Dennis offered weakly. That makes it worse. Max collapsed into his chair, running a hand over his face. The presentation is in 2 hours. Thorne confirmed he's attending personally. Then make it the best damn presentation of your life, Max, Dennis advised. Apologize briefly at the start, then wow him with the numbers. Max nodded jerkily, then froze as his assistant buzzed through. Mr. Holloway, Natalie Kingston is here to see you. Not now, Max hissed. She's already coming in, sir. The door opened and Natalie strode in, immaculately dressed, but with tension evident in every line of her body. We need to talk, she declared, her voice tight. I'm preparing for the most important meeting of my career. Max snapped. The meeting that your ex-husband might torpedo because of you. Because of me? Natalie's voice rose, shrill with indignation. You're the one who insisted he couldn't come to the party because you described him as a pathetic small-timer. Max shouted back, his face a mask of anger. Dennis cleared his throat. I'll give you two a moment. He slipped out, closing the door behind him. Natalie collapsed into a chair. This is a nightmare. Zoe won't return my calls. She's staying with my sister, Olivia. And Barrett. Barrett looked at me like I was nothing. Join the club, Max muttered. 3 years we've been together, and you never thought to mention that your ex-husband might be the Barrett Thorne? I didn't know. Natalie protested, her voice cracking. He was struggling when we divorced. The settlement was minimal. Minimal by what standard? What exactly did you get? Natalie hesitated. The house, worth about $600,000 then. Child support for Zoe. A one-time payment of $250,000. Max stared at her. That's it? From a billionaire? He wasn't a billionaire then. Natalie insisted, desperately trying to rewrite history. At least I didn't think he was. Or maybe, Max said slowly, a cruel realization dawning in his eyes, he was already successful and hid it from you. And you were too self-absorbed to notice. Natalie's face hardened. That's unfair. Is it? Max stood, straightening his tie with a meticulous, almost theatrical gesture. I have a meeting to prepare for. One that might save my company from the mess your lies have created. My lies? Natalie stood as well, matching his intensity. I'm not the one who paraded around Seattle pretending to be less successful than I was. No, you're the one who left your husband when you thought he couldn't provide the lifestyle you wanted. Max's voice was cold, razor sharp. What does that make you, Natalie? She slapped him, the crack echoing in the office. Don't you dare judge me. You loved that I left Barrett for you. It fed your ego. Max touched his cheek, his expression shifting from anger to something calculating, dangerous. We'll discuss this later. Right now, I need to salvage my business. After Natalie stormed out, Max called Dennis back in. Any word from Thorne's team about the meeting? Dennis checked his tablet. Just that Mr. Thorne will be attending personally with his chief counsel and CFO. The lending consortium representatives will also be present. Max nodded, his mind racing. Let's go over the presentation one more time. And Dennis, if things go south, activate Plan B. The Chinese investors. Dennis looked concerned. They're offering worse terms, and they'll want controlling interest. Better than bankruptcy, Max replied grimly. Across town, I sat in my private conference room with Flynn and Lyle, reviewing our strategy. Holloway will be desperate, Flynn predicted. He'll grovel, then try to separate the business from the personal. I nodded. And when that fails, he'll mention his backup financing option, the Chinese consortium. Lyle raised an eyebrow. Which we already bought out last week. Precisely. I smiled thinly. Every escape route blocked, every alternative compromised. It's not enough to defeat an opponent, gentlemen. True victory means they never had a chance to begin with. What about Zoe? Flynn asked cautiously. Olivia says she's still pretty shaken up. My expression softened slightly. I've arranged to meet her tomorrow. She deserves the full truth, directly from me. And Natalie? The softness vanished. Natalie made her choices. Now she'll live with the consequences. 2 hours later, I sat at the head of the conference table in Cascade Investment Partners' main boardroom. Around me sat my executive team, the representatives from the lending consortium, and, directly across from me, Maxwell Holloway and his team. Max looked terrible. His expensive suit and careful grooming couldn't hide the stress of the past 48 hours. He attempted a confident smile as he began his presentation, only faltering slightly when he addressed me directly. Mr. Thorne, before we begin, I want to apologize for the unfortunate misunderstanding at your daughter's birthday celebration. Had you known I was wealthy, you would have treated me differently. I finished for him, my voice flat, emotionless. That says everything I need to know about your character, Mr. Holloway. But please, continue with your presentation. I'm curious to see if your business acumen exceeds your personal judgment. A flush crept up Max's neck, but he pressed on, detailing the waterfront place development with forced enthusiasm. The presentation was solid. The numbers made sense, the design was innovative, the market analysis thorough. When he finished, I simply nodded and turned to my CFO. Your assessment. The fundamentals are sound, my CFO acknowledged. Expected return on investment is 12 to 15% over 5 years. Risk factors are within acceptable parameters. I turned back to Max. On paper, Mr. Holloway, your proposal merits consideration. Unfortunately, I find myself questioning the reliability of the management team. Max's face paled. Mr. Thorne, I assure you, my company has an excellent track record. A company is only as good as the judgment of its leadership, I interrupted, my voice cold. And your judgment, Mr. Holloway, has proved wanting. This is business. Max protested, desperation seeping into his tone. Personal matters shouldn't influence. Everything is personal, Mr. Holloway. Every business deal is built on relationships, on trust. You've demonstrated that you judge people based on their perceived financial status rather than their character. That's not someone I'd choose to do business with. The room fell silent. Max looked stricken. Sir, this project represents years of work. We've already invested millions in preliminary development. Then I suggest you find alternative financing, I replied coldly. Perhaps your Chinese contacts? Max's eyes widened slightly. How could I know about that? They've been exploring other options. Eastern Star Investment Group, I believe. I smiled thinly. I should mention that Thorne Innovations acquired a controlling interest in Eastern Star last week. They'll be declining your proposal as well. The blood drained from Max's face. That's impossible. Is it? I stood, buttoning my suit jacket. This meeting is concluded. Cascade Investment Partners will not be providing financing for Waterfront Place or any other Holloway development projects. Good day, gentlemen. As I and my team prepared to leave, Max surged to his feet. You can't do this. This is personal vengeance, not business. I paused at the door, turning back to face him, my gaze unwavering. You're right, Mr. Holloway. It is personal. Consider it a lesson in treating all people with respect, regardless of their perceived worth. I turned to go, then added, oh, and do give my regards to Natalie. I'm sure she'll be very understanding about your professional setbacks. Outside in the hallway, Flynn matched my stride as we headed toward the elevator. That was brutal. That was necessary, I corrected him. Phase 2 complete. What's Phase 3? Flynn asked. My expression was cold and determined. Total capitulation. #### Chapter 7. The truth revealed. The following morning, I waited in a private room at Cascadia Cafe, a quiet establishment overlooking Puget Sound. I'd chosen the location carefully, neutral ground for my conversation with Zoe, away from both my world and Natalie's. When Zoe entered, I was struck by how adult she looked. At 16, she carried herself with a composure that belied the emotional turmoil of recent days. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, deliberately casual, a stark contrast to the designer outfit from her party. Hi, Dad, she said, sliding into the seat across from me, her voice a little hesitant. Thank you for coming, I replied. I know this has been confusing. Zoe stared at me, her eyes searching my face. Why didn't you tell me? All these years, I thought. She trailed off, the pain evident. You thought I was struggling, I finished for her. I know, and I'm sorry for the deception. But why? The hurt in her voice was palpable. Did you not trust me? I reached across the table, offering my hand. After a moment's hesitation, Zoe took it. It wasn't about trust, I explained, my voice gentle. When your mother left, she made it clear that financial success was her primary measure of worth. I wanted to know who would stand by me when they thought I had nothing. So it was a test? For 3 years? Zoe pulled her hand back, her eyes narrowing. That's messed up, Dad. Perhaps, I acknowledged, my gaze steady. But it revealed important truths. About your mother. About Max. About many so-called friends and business associates. And about me. Zoe challenged. Was I being tested, too? My expression softened. You were caught in the middle, Zoe. Your mother filled your head with a certain narrative about me. I don't blame you for believing it. Mom says you hid assets during the divorce, that you cheated her. I disclosed everything required by law, I replied carefully. The values at that time were accurate. The growth happened after we separated. Growth she would have shared had she not decided I wasn't worth staying with. Zoe studied me, a new shrewdness in her eyes. You've been planning this, haven't you? The reveal at my party. It wasn't an accident. I smiled slightly. You've always been perceptive. No, it wasn't entirely accidental, though the timing was accelerated. Max banning you from my party, that was the catalyst. Zoe was quiet for a moment, processing everything. I heard Max's company is in trouble, that you pulled some big loan. Financing, I corrected. And yes, Cascade Investment Partners has decided not to fund his waterfront place project. Because of me. Because of what happened at the party. Because Maxwell Holloway revealed himself to be someone who judges people based solely on their perceived financial status. That's not someone I choose to do business with. Zoe frowned. So, you're ruining his business because he was rude to you? I'm choosing not to enable someone who behaved dishonorably, I countered. There's a difference. Mom says you're being vindictive. That this is about punishing her for leaving you. My expression hardened slightly. Your mother is entitled to her opinion. But consider this. For 3 years, I've kept my distance. I've paid child support promptly. I've never spoken ill of her to you. It was only when I was explicitly excluded from your birthday, when Max decided I wasn't worthy of attending my own daughter's celebration, that I revealed the truth. Zoe sighed heavily. Everything's such a mess now. Mom and Max are fighting constantly. She's staying at a hotel, and I'm still with Olivia because I don't want to deal with any of it. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, I said sincerely. That was never my intention. What was your intention, Dad? Zoe asked directly, her gaze firm. What do you want out of all this? I considered my answer carefully. Justice, I finally said. Recognition of the truth and consequences for those who betrayed trust. Including me? Zoe's voice was small. You didn't betray me, Zoe, I assured her, my voice gentle. You were a child, influenced by the adults around you. But now you're old enough to see the truth for yourself. Our conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the cafe entrance. Natalie's voice carried across the room, shrill and demanding. I know they're here. I need to speak with them immediately. Zoe closed her eyes briefly. Great. She tracked me down. My phone buzzed with a text from Lyle, positioned discreetly near the entrance. Natalie causing a scene. Want me to intervene? I texted back, let her through. Moments later, Natalie stormed to our table, her eyes wild with anger and fear. How dare you meet with our daughter without telling me? I'm 16, Mom, Zoe pointed out, her voice surprisingly firm. I can have coffee with my father without permission. Not when he's manipulating you against me. Natalie turned to me, her fury white-hot. First, you sabotage my relationship, then you destroy Max's business. Now you're turning my daughter against me. You've done that yourself, Natalie, I replied calmly. Please sit down. You're making a scene. Natalie remained standing, shaking with indignation. Max's investors are pulling out. The bank is calling in loans. You did this, didn't you? I merely declined to finance his project, I said. If others are following suit, perhaps they share my concerns about his business judgment. This isn't about business judgment. Natalie hissed. This is revenge. Mom, seriously. Sit down or leave. Zoe said, her voice cutting through the tension. You're embarrassing yourself. Natalie stared at her daughter, then slowly, reluctantly, sank into a chair. You don't understand what he's doing, Zoe. This is calculated destruction. I understand more than you think, Zoe replied, her voice steady. I understand that you left Dad because you thought he wasn't successful enough. I understand that you've been telling me he's a failure for years. And I understand that the moment you found out he's actually rich, you started having second thoughts about Max. Natalie flinched. That's not true. Isn't it? Zoe challenged, relentless. And Olivia told me you've been talking about how you and Dad might reconnect for my sake. I raised an eyebrow. Have you, Natalie? How pragmatic of you. Natalie flushed, then rallied, her PR instincts kicking in. You've been lying to everyone for years, Barrett, living this double life. How is that any better than what you accuse me of? I never lied, I corrected. I simply allowed people to see what they expected to see. Those who valued me regardless of my perceived financial status, Olivia, Flynn, Lyle, people who saw my character, not my bank account, they knew the truth. And now you're what? Taking revenge on everyone who didn't pass your sick little test. Natalie demanded, her voice laced with bitterness. I'm allowing natural consequences to unfold, I replied, my voice unwavering. Nothing more. Natalie laughed bitterly. Natural consequences? You're deliberately destroying Max's company. I decline to invest in it, I corrected. If his company cannot survive without my investment, that speaks to fundamental weaknesses in his business model. Stop it, both of you. Zoe interrupted, standing up again. This isn't accomplishing anything. She turned and walked away from the table. I'm going back to Olivia's. I need space from both of you right now. As Zoe walked away, Natalie turned to me, her voice low with fury. This isn't over. You think you've won, but you haven't. I met her gaze steadily. It was never about winning, Natalie. It was about truth. And the truth is that you valued wealth over loyalty, appearance over substance. You taught our daughter to do the same. That ends now. Is that a threat? A promise, I replied. Phase 3 begins tomorrow. I suggest you prepare yourself. Natalie's eyes widened slightly. What does that mean? But I was already standing, dropping cash on the table for the untouched coffee. Goodbye, Natalie. Give my regards to Max. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Flynn. Chinese investors pulled out officially. Holloway stock down 27% today. Board calling emergency meeting tonight. I smiled thinly. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Hashtag chapter 8. The fall. The emergency board meeting at Holloway Development Group lasted until 2 a.m. By morning, business news channels were reporting that Maxwell Holloway had been voted out as CEO by his own board of directors. The company's stock had plummeted 40% in 2 days, with major projects stalled and investors fleeing. I watched the coverage from my office, my expression impassive as financial analysts dissected Holloway's downfall. Sources close to the company suggest the collapse of financing for the Waterfront Place project triggered a cascade of failures, the CNBC reporter explained. Major investor Barrett Thorne of Thorne Innovations Group withdrew support unexpectedly, prompting other backers to reconsider their positions. Flynn entered with coffee, nodding toward the screen. They're calling it the Holloway implosion. Fastest corporate downfall in Seattle since the dot-com crash. Any word on Max himself? I asked. Holed up at his lake house. Not taking calls. Flynn hesitated. Natalie's been trying to reach you. 11 messages since last night. I nodded. And Zoe? Still with Olivia. She's watching all this unfold from a distance. My intercom buzzed. Mr. Thorne, Ava announced, the Holloway Development Group board is on line 1. They're requesting an urgent meeting. I exchanged a glance with Flynn. Right on schedule. Put them through. The board chairman's voice was tense. Mr. Thorne, in light of recent changes in leadership, we were hoping to discuss the possibility of reviving discussions about the Waterfront Place financing. I see, I replied coolly. And what assurances can you provide that the new management will demonstrate better judgment than Mr. Holloway? We've appointed Thomas Reed as interim CEO. He's eager to meet with you personally to discuss a path forward. Very well. 3 p.m. today in my office. After hanging up, I turned to Flynn. Thomas Reed was Holloway's CFO, correct? Flynn nodded. Been with the company 15 years. Respected in the industry. No personal connection to your situation with Natalie or Max. Perfect, I murmured. Phase 3 proceeds. Throughout the day, I monitored the fallout. Max's ouster dominated local business news. Financial analysts dissected Holloway Development's precarious position. Social media buzzed with rumors about the connection between Barrett, Max, and Natalie. At 1:30, Natalie arrived unannounced at Thorne Tower demanding to see me. Security called up for instructions. Send her to conference room B, I directed. I'll meet her there. When I entered the conference room, Natalie was pacing frantically. She looked disheveled, her usual perfect appearance fraying at the edges. You've destroyed him, she accused, without preamble. The board fired Max. The bank is foreclosing on our house. His assets are frozen. I sat calmly. I've done nothing illegal or unethical. I declined to finance a project led by someone whose judgment I couldn't trust. Others made their own decisions. This is vindictive, Natalie cried. You're punishing him. Punishing us because I left you. No, Natalie, I corrected. I'm allowing natural consequences to unfold. Max built his business on appearances and connections rather than solid fundamentals. One setback shouldn't cause a complete collapse unless the foundation was already weak. What do you want? Natalie demanded, desperation creeping into her voice. Money? An apology? Tell me what will make this stop. I studied her with clinical detachment. There is nothing you can offer that would interest me, Natalie. Not anymore. What about Zoe? Natalie tried a different angle. She's watching her mother's life implode. Is that what you want for your daughter? Zoe is watching the consequences of poor choices, I replied. It's an important lesson. Natalie collapsed into a chair, the fight suddenly leaving her. I didn't know, Barrett. I truly didn't know you were successful when I left. Would it have made a difference? I asked quietly, my gaze unblinking. If you'd known I was wealthy, would you have stayed? Natalie opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to answer. That's what I thought, I said. You didn't leave because our marriage had problems, Natalie. You left because you thought you found a more profitable alternative. And now that alternative has proven disappointing. So this is my punishment, Natalie whispered, her voice breaking. Financial ruin, public humiliation. This is reality, I corrected. Reality without the cushion of my protection. You chose this path, Natalie. Now you get to walk it. I have nothing left, she said, tears welling in her eyes. Max is blaming me for everything. We're losing the house. My friends won't return my calls. You have exactly what you had when you left me, I pointed out. The settlement was fair. The house I bought you is paid for. You have skills and education. What you don't have is the lifestyle that Max's money provided. Money he didn't actually have, as it turns out. Natalie stared at me, a dawning realization in her eyes. You're not going to help me, are you? No matter what I say or do. No, I confirmed. I'm not. Not even for Zoe's sake? Zoe is nearly an adult. She'll always have my support. But you, Natalie, you made your choices. I respected those choices for 3 years. I kept my distance. I allowed you to build your new life with Max. It was only when you both actively disrespected me, banned me from my own daughter's celebration, that I responded. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. Then what happens now? Now I stood. Now I have a meeting with Holloway Development Group's board of directors. They're very eager to discuss financing options with me. Without Max, of course. You're going to save his company after destroying him? Natalie asked, incredulous. I'm going to acquire his company, I corrected, a thin, cold smile on my lips. At a significant discount. It's a sound business decision. And us? Me and Zoe. Zoe will always be my daughter. She'll want for nothing. I moved toward the door. As for you, Natalie, you're free to rebuild your life however you see fit, just not with my assistance. Barrett, please. Natalie called as I reached the door. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm truly sorry. I paused, my back to her. Your apology is noted, Natalie. But as you once taught me, some things can't be forgiven. At 3 p.m. sharp, I met with the Holloway Development Board. The directors were deferential, almost obsequious, as they presented their revised proposal for Waterfront Place. Thomas Reed, the interim CEO, outlined changes to the management structure and financing approach. We've removed all of Mr. Holloway's personal projects from the development pipeline, Reed explained, focusing only on ventures with proven market demand and realistic financial models. I nodded, reviewing the revised projections. And Mr. Holloway's equity position? The board has agreed to a buyout of his shares, Reed replied. Given the current valuation, it's a modest package. I see, I said. And what would the board's position be on an acquisition offer for the entire company? The directors exchanged glances. We would be open to discussing such an offer, the chairman said carefully. I smiled thinly. Excellent. My team will provide terms this evening. I suggest you review them promptly. As the directors filed out, Flynn entered with a tablet. I assume we're moving forward with the acquisition. I nodded. Prepare the offer. 50 cents on the dollar of last week's valuation. Non-negotiable. And Flynn, make sure the terms specify that all current executives must resign upon completion, except for Thomas Reed. Cleaning house completely? New ownership, new beginning, I replied. No connections to the past. Later that evening, as I worked in my home office, my secure line rang. It was Olivia. I thought you should know, she said without preamble. Zoe's decided to move in with me permanently. She doesn't want to live with Natalie anymore. I set down my pen. Is she certain? That's a significant decision. She's been watching everything unfold, Olivia replied. The news about Max, Natalie's meltdown, your acquisition of Holloway Development. She's connecting the dots and she's impressed by your strategic thinking, but disturbed by your ruthlessness, Olivia said bluntly. Her words, not mine. I was silent for a moment. Is she afraid of me? Not afraid, Olivia clarified. But she's seeing a side of you she never knew existed. It's a lot to process. I never wanted to hurt her, I said quietly. I know that, Olivia assured him. And deep down, so does she. But Barrett, this scorched earth approach, it's affecting more than just Natalie and Max. It was necessary, I insisted. Was it? Olivia challenged. Or has this become about proving something to yourself? About making sure everyone knows Barrett Thorne is not a man to be crossed? I had no immediate answer. Just think about that. Olivia continued more gently. Zoe wants to have dinner with you tomorrow. Just the two of you. She has questions. Of course, I agreed. Tell her to name the time and place. After hanging up, I stood at my window for a long time, staring out at the city lights. For the first time since this began, doubt crept into my mind. Had I gone too far? Had my pursuit of justice become simple vengeance? My phone chimed with a news alert. Breaking, Holloway Development Group Board accepts Thorne Innovations acquisition offer. I closed my eyes briefly. Phase 3 complete. Total capitulation achieved. So why didn't it feel like victory? Hashtag chapter 9. No forgiveness. Zoe chose a small Italian restaurant for our dinner. The same place I used to take her for birthday celebrations when she was younger. It was a deliberate choice, I recognized, a reminder of simpler times. She was already seated when I arrived, wearing a simple sweater and jeans rather than the designer clothes Natalie preferred. Her expression was guarded, but not hostile. Thanks for coming, I said, taking the seat across from her. I want to understand, Zoe replied directly, her voice steady. All of it. No more secrets or half-truths. I nodded. Ask me anything. When did you actually become successful? Before or after Mom left? Both, I answered. I was already building something substantial while we were married, but I kept it compartmentalized. The real growth happened after the divorce. Why hide it from her? From everyone. I considered my answer carefully. I saw how wealth changed people around me. Friends became sycophants. Business associates became opportunists. Your mother became increasingly focused on appearances and status. So you tested her? Zoe's tone was neutral, almost clinical. In a way, I acknowledged. I wanted to know if she loved me or the lifestyle she thought I could provide. And she failed the test. She made her choice, I said simply. Zoe was quiet for a moment, turning her water glass slowly. The company you just bought. Max's company. What happens to it now? It becomes a subsidiary of Thorne Innovations. We'll complete the viable projects, wind down the others. The good employees will keep their jobs. The name will change. And Max himself? He's out completely. The acquisition terms excluded him from any ongoing role or benefit. Zoe nodded, processing this. And Mom? That's between her and Max, I replied. My understanding is that their relationship has deteriorated. That's one way to put it, Zoe said, a hint of bitterness in her voice. She called me crying every day. Their house is in foreclosure. Her friends have abandoned her. It's like watching someone's life implode in real time. I studied my daughter carefully. Does that bother you? Of course, it bothers me. Zoe's composure cracked slightly. She's still my mother, Dad. No matter what she did to you. I haven't done anything to her directly, I pointed out. I simply stopped protecting her from the consequences of her choices. By systematically destroying her boyfriend's life and company? By declining to do business with someone who demonstrated poor character and judgment, I corrected. Everything else followed naturally. Zoe looked at me intently. This wasn't just business, Dad. Be honest with me. This was personal. I met her gaze. Yes, I admitted. It was personal. When Max banned me from your birthday, it crossed a line. Not because of my ego, but because he tried to sever my connection to you, my daughter. That I could not forgive. And Mom? Can you forgive her? I was silent for a long moment. No, I finally said. I can't. Even if she's truly sorry, even if she's learned her lesson, some betrayals run too deep. Some choices have permanent consequences. Zoe looked down at her untouched meal. She wants to meet with you, to apologize properly. She thinks if you just talk. It won't change anything, I interrupted gently. I don't hate your mother, Zoe. I don't wish her ill, but I don't forgive her either, and I never will. That seems harsh. It's honest, I countered. Would you prefer I pretend a forgiveness I don't feel? Zoe sighed heavily. I don't know what I want. Everything's changed so fast. 2 weeks ago, I thought my dad was a struggling consultant and my mom was happily dating a successful developer. Now you see the reality behind the facade, I finished. It's not easy, I know. What about Max? Zoe asked. He came to Olivia's yesterday looking for Mom. He was broken, Dad. Literally begging for help, and Olivia sent him away. Zoe studied my face. He might lose everything. His reputation, his career, his home. Does that satisfy you? My expression remained calm. It's not about satisfaction, Zoe. It's about justice. Justice or revenge? Perhaps both, I admitted. Max chose to judge me based solely on my perceived financial status. He treated me with contempt when he thought I was beneath him. Now he learns what true power actually looks like. Zoe was quiet for a long time. You know, Mom always said you were cold when it came to business. That underneath the charm was something unyielding. I never believed her until now. I didn't flinch from her assessment. In business, as in life, clarity is essential. Max and your mother made their choices with clear eyes. Now they face the consequences with equal clarity. And me? Zoe asked quietly. What are the consequences for me, for believing what Mom told me about you? I reached across the table, taking her hand. You were a child caught between warring parents. There are no consequences for you, Zoe. Only a father who loves you unconditionally. Even though I didn't always treat you with respect? Even though I believed you were a failure? Tears shimmered in her eyes. Even then, I assured her. Always. Zoe wiped her eyes. I want to understand you better, Dad. The real you, not the version Mom described or the version you pretended to be. I smiled slightly. I'd like that. But I need you to understand something, too, Zoe continued, her voice strengthening. I can't just abandon Mom, no matter what she did to you. She's still my mother. I would never ask you to choose, I said sincerely. Your relationship with your mother is yours to define, not mine. Zoe nodded, relief evident in her expression. There's something else. Max came to Mom's hotel this morning. She hesitated. What happened? My voice sharpened. Nothing violent, Zoe assured me. But he blamed her for everything. Said she ruined his life by lying about you. It was ugly, Dad. Really ugly. He called her terrible things. Zoe looked troubled. I've never seen someone so broken and angry at the same time. I made a mental note to have Lyle increase security around Natalie's hotel. Whatever my feelings about my ex-wife, I wouldn't allow her to be threatened. Max will leave Seattle soon, I predicted. There's nothing left for him here. His reputation in the business community is finished. Because you made sure of it, Zoe observed. Because he made choices that led to this outcome, I corrected. I simply revealed the truth. The rest happened naturally. Our dinner concluded with tentative plans for the future. Zoe would continue living with Olivia for now, but would spend weekends with me. We would rebuild our relationship on honest ground, one step at a time. As I walked her to Olivia's car, Zoe paused. One last question, Dad. Was it worth it? All of this. I considered the question carefully. Ask me again in a year, I finally said. When the dust has settled, and we can see clearly. What remains? Zoe nodded, then hugged me. The first genuine embrace we'd shared in years. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. As I watched the car pull away, my phone rang. It was Flynn. It's done, my friend reported. Holloway Development Group is officially part of Thorn Innovations. The papers are signed, the money transferred, and Max left the building with a cardboard box and a security escort. Thomas Reed says he was not gracious in defeat. I wasn't surprised. Have Lyle arranged additional security for Natalie? Max may redirect his anger toward her. Already done, Flynn assured me. Also, the Seattle Business Journal wants an interview about the acquisition. Your call if you want to go public now or maintain the low profile. I considered the question, the city lights shimmering before me. Schedule the interview. It's time to step out of the shadows. On my terms. 3 days later, I sat in my office reviewing the final acquisition documents when Ava buzzed through. Mr. Thorne, Natalie Kingston is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent. I sighed. Send her up. When Natalie entered, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished, confident woman who had dominated Seattle's social scene. In her place stood someone diminished. Designer clothes replaced by simple attire, perfect makeup absent, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly, remaining standing even when I gestured to a chair. What can I do for you, Natalie? Nothing, she admitted. That's not why I'm here. I came to apologize. Properly. I waited, my expression neutral. I made terrible choices, Natalie continued, her voice raw. I judged you based on wealth rather than character. I taught our daughter to do the same. I left when I thought you couldn't give me the lifestyle I wanted. She paused, gathering herself. I was wrong, Barrett. Deeply, unforgivably wrong. Yes, I agreed calmly. You were. Natalie flinched slightly at my direct agreement, but pressed on. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Who you really are. And who am I, Natalie? I asked, curious despite myself. Someone who never forgot, never forgave. She met my gaze directly. Someone who waited patiently for years to deliver justice. I didn't deny it. Is that all you came to say? Natalie hesitated. Max is gone. He left Seattle yesterday. Before he left, he blamed me for everything. Said I destroyed his life by lying about you. And did you lie about me, Natalie, or did you simply not know the truth? Both, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know how successful you really were, but I convinced myself you were a failure to justify leaving. I needed you to be less than you were so I could feel better about my choice. I nodded, appreciating her honesty if nothing else. I've lost everything, Natalie continued. My relationship, my social standing, most of my friends, my daughter's respect. She paused. Was that your plan all along? Total destruction. My plan was to live my life authentically, I replied. To build something meaningful, to be there for my daughter. You and Max forced the confrontation, not me. Natalie nodded slowly. I understand. And I won't bother you again after today. She hesitated, I just want to know if there's any part of you that remembers what we once had, before it all went wrong. I studied her for a long moment. I remember, I finally said. But memory isn't forgiveness, Natalie. It's just acknowledgement of what was, not absolution for what came after. I see. Natalie straightened, a shred of dignity reasserting itself despite everything. Thank you for your time. And Barrett, take care of Zoe. She deserves better than both of us. As she turned to leave, I spoke again. Natalie, the settlement house is still in your name. No one is taking that from you. And your PR skills are still valuable. You can rebuild. Natalie paused at the door, her shoulders slumped. Is that compassion? Clarity, I corrected. I don't wish you suffering, Natalie. I simply refuse to shield you from the natural consequences of your choices. After she left, I returned to the window, gazing out at the city I'd quietly conquered, while others underestimated me. The interview with the Business Journal would run tomorrow, officially unveiling Barrett Thorne as the power behind Thorne Innovations. My days of invisibility were ending. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. Dinner this weekend? My treat this time. I smiled. The first genuine smile in weeks. I'd like that, I replied. The empire I built would continue to grow. The lessons I taught would not be forgotten. And the line I'd drawn between those who stood by me and those who betrayed me would remain indelible. Some might call it ruthless. Barrett Thorne called it justice.